Hey guys, I got a really special episode today. Mick Gillespie from the YouTube channel Cubs Baseball Channel and also the YouTube channel Alabama Tailgate joined me to talk about Cubs baseball. He is the Cubs guy. In my opinion, he's the best media guy, has the best media presence on Chicago Cubs baseball. He's who I watch every single day and every single morning. So it was an absolute honor to have him on. And I want to say this too, is when you have a couple, like I have 600 subscribers now and it's unbelievable and I'm so damn thankful, but it's hard to get people to come on your channel. I've had people ghost me. I've had every single type of variation of people telling me no as I'm trying to get guests on for you guys and interesting content to be made. Mick was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was just like, heck yeah. So please go and subscribe to his channel. Cubs Baseball Channel, everything you've ever needed for a Cubs channel. And then Alabama Tailgate for college football. Check him out. Please check him out and please subscribe to his channel. All right, let's get into it. All right, guys. We got Mick Gillespie on Cubs Baseball Channel, which is one of my favorite YouTube channels. Mick, thank you so much for joining. This is just freaking awesome.
Hey man, good. Hey, look, anytime, man, anytime. I see you got the Rock'em Sock'em. We had those at my house when I was a kid, man, and we called it Bluey and Reddy. They would just fight each other all the time, you know. So are they in the box or is that just the box?
No.
Just
The
the
real
box?
thing's in my parents' house. This is just the
Okay.
box. This is just the
Like
show.
sweet though, dude. That's sweet.
Yeah, it's just the show. But yeah, my dad had like the original one, and then he came out with like the remake when I was a kid, and boom,
Yeah.
that's when we got it. All right, I wanted to talk to you about like the lineup. I know you've been talking a lot about in your channel. I just want to talk like start to finish from the outfield, infield, and all the way to catcher. Who the heck's going to actually be playing for the Cubs? And then I definitely want to talk about, is this year a winning year or is it a building year? Because I feel
Mm,
like last year, like my biggest pain was you had the opportunity to put young cats up there and you
hmm.
didn't. You let it
Yeah.
slide, and then you kept mediocrity across the board, and it just ended up being a waste of a year, honestly.
Yeah. Look, I was surprised by that too. I mean, not nothing against the Miles Mastrobonis and the Patrick Wisdoms of the world, but I mean, why wouldn't you have put young guys in and just seen what they can do? And that's why when I talk about the 83 and 79 record, I don't buy it. Like I don't think it really is significant. You know,
No.
like they were never going to make the playoffs. Like they were so far behind. I mean, they would try to make a run, and then you'd look at it and like they have like a 6.8% chance of making it. You know what I mean? Like, and this is in, July and August, and then it was like they thought that if they had a winning record, they were going to fool everybody into thinking that maybe they were really contenders, and they never were, right? So where we are right now, I mean, I look at where Jed Hoyer is, and I go, if he doesn't win now, he's never going to be the GM again. These are hard jobs to get, or team
Oh yeah.
president, or whatever his title is. In essence, he's a GM, and he's not going to be that. So it's get it done or you're out. He didn't get it done with the Padres, and then now he's not getting it done with the Cubs. And I don't know that all of it's his fault. I mean, he inherited a situation that wasn't great. He was going to have to trade away our heroes that won us a World Series. But now it's time to either figure it out or don't. And he's on his last year. Tom didn't fire him. He's giving him a chance. So he's got to make things happen. And I kind of feel that sense of urgency, and I like it.
I think the worst thing for me last year was just how lazy the team looked constantly. It's not even laziness,
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
complacency, right? It's like the lack of ability to actually want to. And thank God you turned us on to PCA like a year before anyone knew his name, because he was like the must-watch guy every time I was at Wrigley and every time I was watching on TV.
Yeah, look, I called him Hollywood Pete, man. I saw him and I was like, this dude can play, man. The problem that you have, and this isn't just a Cubs problem, it's a kind of a baseball problem, is PCA wasn't ready to go to the big leagues when he got there, but they pushed him up to AAA when he wasn't ready. And I mean, look, once you're in AAA, I mean, the next
Hmm.
step's the big leagues. So you got to send him to the big leagues, and you got to wait for him to kind of start to get to that point where he's ready to go. And it took him a whole year really to kind of get going. But the defense and the base running and the energy that he brings to the park every day, I mean, you can't not like that. And he wants to win. He's got a desire to win. So I really liked him. And when he first came up, I figured like, okay, he's going to be kind of like Baez. I remember texting Len Casper about Baez, and I'm like, look, this guy's going to do something today. And he hit a home run to beat the Rockies, that first game. And he was like, man, you told me that. I was like, yeah, I saw it. I mean, I saw it. And I thought PCA, I call him Hollywood. I thought he played like kind of like Baez too, but it just took him a long time to kind of get to where he was able to go and contribute. And I kept waiting for it. I was like, man, it's gonna happen. I mean, I'm basing my name on it because I believe in him. And then you started seeing it. He hit the home run
Oh
against the
yeah,
Astros, and then all of a sudden, like he takes center field away from Bellinger, and then it's like, then he's like getting on base and stealing. They can't throw him out, and he still hasn't hit his potential, right? But he's got great hand-eye coordination. He's going to get a lot of hits, but it's the passion that he plays with
that's
and the
it.
speed that he has, right?
It's the respect for Wrigley Field. It's the respect for being a Cub and what that
Hmm.
brings. I mean, literally, you could track like the Cubs' success in August, which was their best month, on his success as well. That was his best
Right.
month. And it was just a direct correlation where you had, I mean, winning championship teams really have two formulas. One, you have old guys that are like pretty solid, good players, and you have like
Right.
superstar young guys, or you have superstar old guys and you have young guys who step up. And
Yeah.
so, like, theoretically, the Cubs could have been that old guys who lead the team, then a few young guys, but they just dropped the ball.
Well, I mean, I felt like I honestly, man, I'm going to go back to Theo. And
Hmm.
I respect Theo. I think he's a Hall of Famer. So this isn't
Yeah, Red Sox.
a shot
Yes.
at like, at his career. But the last, I don't know, after the Cubs won the World Series, the sense of urgency in the organization, it went away, and it was like all of a sudden we became, full of elitism, and entitlement. When you add those two things together, it's not a good sign, right? And then you're going, why aren't we developing pitching? Why aren't we bringing, why isn't someone else coming? It's because from top to bottom, we just had this like sense of entitlement, man. And I think that Theo kind of earned it, but it was everybody around him that thought they were there with him, and instead of like having like this drive that I saw that started, when he got there to winning the World Series, it went the other way. So when he left, I thought it was a really good thing for the Cubs because the sense of entitlement's awful.
Hmm.
Not any organization, anything that you do, if you got people that are entitled, that's no good. And so I thought Jed did a good job of kind of starting to curtail that and kind of get it back to where, hey, we got to earn, what we do. But then you see like these big league decisions, and it's like, why in the hell would we sign Ian Happ for that much money and no trade clause? Like, I mean, I like him, but even with
Yeah.
his Gold Gloves, like it's left field. It's
I
not even a
just,
shot against him. It's just a position. Like, you got a whole bunch of guys you could bring up from anywhere, play that position, and get similar production, and now you're stuck with this guy. And then the Dansby Swanson deal feels so much like Jason Hayward to me. Like,
oh,
Dansby better get it done, man. I mean, if he doesn't, then this team's in trouble. I feel like he's the most important player on the roster. When he plays well, we're good. When he's driving in runs and he's hitting the ball. But moreover, we end up getting the guy that's like an easy out. You got to put him eighth in the lineup, and you can make all the defensive plays you want at shortstop, but that's a that's a mediocre position until you get the hitting, and he can't hit right now.
I'm so sick of hearing Gold Gloves every single
Right.
year. It's like, what Gold Glover does the Cubs have? Like, dude, we're
Yeah.
at the plate is when you win. That's when you win championships. Do
Yeah,
you
you
think
got
that?
to hit.
Do you think the Dodger model of, hey, we're just gonna pay people that are really good and have a super high, is that like the successful model, or is that a one-off? Like, does the farm system still matter?
I mean, it does matter. It really does. The farm system matters, and you win that way. But you also win with great players and great talent. And the way that the Dodgers are doing it, that works too. I mean, the Dodgers have a great TV network. And I hope the Cubs get marquee to that point.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's even close right now, but they're making a lot of money on that. And I feel like I see the Dodgers like, and part of it is that the Dodgers got their TV deal done before, I guess like regional sports networks had issues, but the Cubs shouldn't have that's an excuse to me. The Cubs are kind of like the Dodgers. They're like the Yankees. They're like the Red Sox. There's never going to be a regional sports network problem with the Cubs. It's the product, so we can pretend all that we want to pretend. And at the end of the day, if you put Harry and Steve on, everybody's watching. And that's what I grew up with. Like I would have paid whatever to watch those guys. If you want to make it about other stuff, and they do, then you're going to have the problems that you have. And you can blame it on the team not winning, and you can blame it on, the economy and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, when the Cubs are doing what the Cubs do, people love it. There's an enormous amount of Cubs fans. Now, it would help tremendously if the Cubs were competitive, right? I mean, but the Dodgers kind of got into this thing at the right time. Their network's fantastic. They have a big market, but so do the Cubs. And they have money to spend, and they're not afraid to spend it. They went out and got Ohtani, and they got Freeman, and they got Betts, and and then they just keep going out and getting more guys. That works. I mean, that definitely works. I mean, look, the Yankees built an empire on that. But I don't think that's the formula that the Cubs are going to use, So but I still think you can win by developing, and that's an area where the Cubs are kind of hoping that pays dividends for them right now. I mean, they do have one of the best farm systems, but there's a lot of question marks there, man. Yeah, I mean, when you got Freddie Freeman and you got Mookie Betts and you got Shohei Ohtani and whoever else they add, there's and you're hoping, well, maybe Michael Busch turns into something, maybe Seiya Suzuki can figure out how to catch the ball. Ian Happ to me is like he has great games, and then you don't see him for 2 weeks, and then he'll have like 5 amazing games, and then you don't see him for another week. Like he's not a consistent superstar to me. He's a good player. And I hope Kyle Tucker's the guy that kind of steps up and becomes that next guy. I mean, I hope so. Like when we signed Andre Dawson, and it was like, okay, here we go. We'll see what happens. But if you go out and you spend the money for like marquee players, star players, you get the right guys, you're going to be good for a long time.
Yeah, I like the model of, hey, let's have the best farm system and then just fill in star players when we need them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But right now the Cubs are kind of in between both those models.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, they won a World Series developing players, and then they went out and signed some guys too, but, made some trades, got lucky, but had a game plan, like, and Tom Ricketts to me, never gets any credit for this, but should. The fact that he let Theo lose for all those years too. I mean, there were a lot of losing seasons where Theo got to just like blow the year and get draft picks and trade players away, and they would basically knew they were going to stink, so they would just go out and and purposely lose and trade and try to build up guys by figuring out what the best way to put them in positions to succeed, to build their value, and then trade them. I mean, look, it worked when they got Jake Arrieta. So, I mean, I get that part of it too. I don't know that Jed had the same luxury, right? Because they were like, well, we want to win, but at the same time, I mean, it's like it's hard to do both. So, I don't know. Like it's been a totally different situation for Jed than it was for Theo. So that, I mean, there's an excuse there too. But at the end of the day, like your record is what you put your hat on when you're the president or GM of a team, and it hasn't been good enough because we haven't been to the playoffs.
Yeah, either for me, it's either be at the top or be at the bottom.
Yeah, right.
But the mediocrity is just an absolute joke.
Yeah, I hate
like
that
barely making the playoffs or even making the playoffs and being bounced in round one. That's just terrible because you're just wasting a year every time, wasting a year.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's how last year felt to me too.
Oh.
Like I'm watching the end of the year and they're trying so hard to like, put a winning record together, and it's like, what's it even matter? Like,
Nothing.
why aren't we seeing what Owen Casey can do? Where's Matt Shaw? You guys push these guys to AAA, like, basically saying, hey, they're ready to go. And then you're going to put Mastroboni in there. You're going to waste at bats with Bodie, and you're going to waste at bats with Wisdom. I didn't agree with any of that. I just kind of felt like we were, we just like we wanted to show up and go, hey, we're 83 and 79. Look, man, we were never in it. We
No, we
just
were never
weren't,
in
like,
it. We had the
never in it,
worst.
man. So you can't even count that. Like, so what? You were over 500. You didn't win anything, and you never even were. At least 2 years ago, when we folded, we were in position to make it, and we just didn't. Like last year was like
Yeah,
all cosmetic.
it was just for show.
Yeah,
It was marketing.
and
That's really what it was.
I agree with that. Yeah, totally.
All right, can you talk a little bit about Shaw and Owen Casey, where they're going to play, where they're going to fit in? I keep hearing third base. I don't know if that's for both of them, but definitely for Shaw. What do you see in those guys?
Yeah, look, he's played third base. I mean, he was drafted as a shortstop, but a lot of teams do that, and they draft players at shortstop because that's the position you can slide them into other areas, right? You play shortstop, well,
Hmm.
hell, you can play second, you can play third, you can play the outfield. It's the most athletic position on the diamond, right? So I've seen Shaw play third. He's adequate at it. He's better than Morel. Um,
Not
you
saying
know,
much, but yeah.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, I know, but I mean, it's still. I mean, Morel was so bad. Shaw's not like that. He's a baseball's player. He's a baseball player's baseball player, right? Like
Yeah,
you like the
fundamental.
game, like yeah, he just knows that he's smart. Doesn't have the super arm, but he's good, and he's good enough. And then he could play second too. I think there's a chance that they trade Nico Horner. You keep
Mhm.
hearing that. It would not surprise me. And then Owen Casey, I just got this feeling that they may trade him, and I hope they don't because it could go down as one of those deals where you're like, man, what did we just do here? Part of the problem that you have when you don't give your front office an extension is that those guys are kind of on a 1 year deal, and
Mhm.
if you think Cam Smith is good, you just traded him for a 1 year rental, Kyle Tucker. I mean, it long term, if you've had a 5 year deal, you probably don't make that deal because you're like, well, we drafted him, we feel like he's good, but these guys are like this close to never being in charge again, so they got to make decisions that got to roll the dice a little bit. So I kind of, and I don't know that I honestly I think it was a good trade. I'm not giving you my opinion on that. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen enough Cam Smith to know if he's going to be a star or not. I don't know. I don't see it one way or the other. But I know for the Cubs to succeed this year, they had to have like a star player, and they got one. So now Owen Casey, I believe in him, man. I think he's the best player. I think he's better than Shaw. I think he's the best player the Cubs have in their farm system. And if I was in charge, I would have got him into the leagues last year. They put
Me
out
too.
Kevin Alcantara out there. He's way better than him. And I don't know what all the other stuff is or isn't. Why they would have or wouldn't have done that. But to me, Owen Casey's just a premier player in the waiting. Like he's a star. I mean, he's got some issues like every other minor leaguer, but he works hard. He's good defensively. He barrels the ball. He's a difference maker. He's a better player than Alcantara in pretty much every category. Defense, strong. I think he's got as good or better arm. I think he's a better hitter. I think he hits for average better. I think he's just better. And I think that he's better defensively than Seiya Suzuki. I think if I was the Cubs, he'd be my right fielder of the future unless I sign Kyle Tucker. And so since Tucker's a 1 year guy, I don't know. I mean, what do you do with him, right?
I
But
know.
if I'm Toronto and I can trade Bo Bichette for him, yeah, I may do that. I'm doing that. Like, hey, look, if I'll give him straight up right now. If because he's from Canada, you got that, and then you'd have him for a long time, and I think he's a star player in the waiting. So I really like him. It's just like when he makes contact, things happen, man. It's just like he's got the barrel of his bat seems bigger than everybody else. He hasn't developed the power yet that we all think he's going to end up eventually having, but he's a young guy. He's always been the youngest guy in every league he's ever been in. What's going to happen when he's the same age as everybody? So, but it would be a Cubs thing to do to trade him
I'd
and then
hope
him
they
be a
don't.
star for somebody else, and us to be like, hey, we had that guy, right? Dontrell Willis. We had him, but he's a star with the Marlins. Like it would be a Cubs thing to trade him. So I don't know, and that's what worries me too about having a front office that is in a lame duck contract.
What position would Casey play?
They play outfield. I mean,
Okay.
probably right, but I mean, you know, you could develop them to play some other positions, but you got really right fields or DH, you know, and then that's been the most baffling part of this roster management to me.
Yeah, it's full everywhere. Where
It's
you're gonna
like, yeah, I mean, why would you sign all these guys to these like contract extensions when you have all
yeah.
these minor leaguers that they're top
And
prospects and you don't have anywhere to put them? Like,
and
and what would really be funny is if you go out and you sign somebody to play third base or you trade for somebody and then you really have no spot for the, you know, the second or the first best minor league system in baseball to play any of these guys. Like, well, we got them, but what the hell are we going to do with them? Well, we're
well,
just
then
going
you
to
feel
have
like
them
you
in
got to
triple.
trade them, and then you
Yeah,
like.
right.
I don't like trading the best prospects because I feel like you lose your culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something about having a young cat up there that
Right.
makes everyone kind of connected to the team and that
I
person.
agree. I agree, man. And that's what Theo did when he went out and drafted, you know, these guys, the Baez's and the Bryants, and you
Yeah.
know, and put together this Cubs way. You could feel the momentum in the organization back then. You know,
Hmm.
when the Cubs were kind of building towards the World Series, and the tough part about it was when they won, other teams came and poached all of their best, like, you know, coaches, like the best, and they just went out and replaced them with everybody's buddies. Like they didn't go out and get the best coaches to replace the best coaches. And there were coaches that were left over from Jim Hendry, and you know, and the ones that Theo brought in, and you know, and then it became like a friends club, you know, and that to me is kind of where we got to where we're at right now. And I don't know that we've ever recovered. You know, teaching's a big part of the game, and I saw where like we're going to get rid of, you know, scouts and we're going to bring in more analytics, and it's like you can do that, but you're also going to get rid of what makes baseball baseball, and that's just like when I talk to Billy Williams, and he constantly reminds me about when he was a young player and Rogers Hornsby's like sitting there watching him take BP and talking to him about the game. That stuff matters, man. Like the game isn't played by robots. So I don't know, man. I it just I hope that this is the year that we get things turned around, and I feel like Craig Counsell, not as even as a manager, but just as a baseball person. He's a great baseball person,
Hmm.
and his influence will help like make better decisions. Like I saw last year where the Cubs, they couldn't develop pitching, and it was because they were so worried about people getting hurt that they never let them pitch. Well, they actually let them pitch last year, and you can see guys like getting to the big leagues and having success. And I thought that was a good step. And I don't know who made that decision. I mean, I'm guessing that Council had a, you know, a say in that, or whoever did, but it made a difference. You know, I'm hoping that we kind of take another step in that area too, because I'm a Cubs fan. Like I'm pulling for them. Like I love when we're successful. Like it's not like I'm like some cynic that's over here, you know, why I want to be the guy that, you know, craps on the Cubs. No, I just want to see them do well.
Yeah, my big thing was like I like Council a lot, but sometimes like the team last year needed like a motivational speaker almost.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding you. Like every single day, like it's going in there and ripping someone with a little bit of intensity on the field.
Yeah.
So hopefully this team can kind of lead themselves. 'Cause I don't really see Council as like a guy who's gonna get the most out of people. Like he needs people to get the most out of themselves in a way.
Right. Right. Right.
Like lead
Right.
themselves, which they should be able to do because they're professionals.
Yeah.
But it just didn't feel that way last year that they needed someone that was just like Bob Knight toughness, you know?
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, I mean, it's look, our last manager is one of my favorite people I've ever met in baseball, and he's like the
Hmm.
nicest guy in the world, right, Joe Madden?
Yeah.
But it got to the point too where it was like you know, they just didn't really want to hear it, you know? Like, you know, what was it like you know, do you know, do better, whatever. You know, it's like just little things that they would ask you to do, and then all of a sudden it's like instead of them um do simple better, right? This
Hmm.
is all the little stuff that, you know, like instead of somebody like standing over your shoulder yelling at you, it's like, hey, here's our standard. They didn't want to hear that anymore. And it was like, well, we won the World Series. I mean, you know, there's never going to be a bigger accomplishment than this, you know, and you could feel them, you know, kind of step away from all of the things that made them them. And it was a shame, you know. So I don't know like what works or doesn't work. I remember Earl Weaver being a great manager for baseball, in baseball forever, like the Baltimore guy, the little, the little general they call him, the Orioles manager,
Yeah.
like you get
Good
your
mic'd
ass
up
real
on that
good.
guy.
Yeah. I always loved Lou Pinella. I mean, when
Yeah.
Lou was our manager, it was great. I loved hanging out with him. Like he'd, lose his shit on people, but I don't know. I don't even know like what
Well,
what
just the
what works and
standard.
what doesn't. Part of it's having a great team, but a part of it's also having guys in the clubhouse like Jake Arrieta and John Lester and John Lackey that's not going to tolerate you not playing well.
That's it. That's it.
And these guys they're all so rich. It's like,
There you go.
like you're going to go in here and like start yelling at millionaires about, I mean, come on, so it takes another millionaire that comes in. Like the Braves had so much success with like Chipper and Greg Maddux, so he should have been in a Cub his entire career,
Hmm.
and a topic for another day. But Glavine and Smoltz and all of those guys, like they had a high standard, and they weren't afraid to go up to you and be like, "Hey, you know what? This is what we expect, right? This is the way that we want it done here." It's like it. That's what you got to have, to have sustained success.
Yeah.
And the Cubs giving away Kyle Schwarber was bad. He was
Hmm.
kind of one of those guys. Like I don't know that he's going in and getting in people's asses, but he was definitely like a lead by example guy. And then now we don't have anybody left from the 2016 World Series. None of them. Now that Hendricks is in there, Hendricks, was kind of the best guy to have there because he was always the guy that's going to go out and get it done.
Right.
So it's going to take a new crop. Man, I think that's why the Kyle Tucker trade was so important
Yeah.
because they need that's what he's known for. Like you got to have that guy that's going to be like, hey man, this is what we expect here, or
That's
this is what I want.
that's what I want. I want a leader in the clubhouse, and if the
Yeah.
standard is not being met, meaning like a champion knows what it takes,
Hmm.
I need that person voicing it in a clubhouse. That's what I want to see. And I want to just see intensity every day on the field.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think effort, which I thought
Absolute
Bellinger
effort.
did a good job of that too. I like the
Yeah.
way he played the game.
I like
If
Belly.
you
I
didn't,
always liked him.
if you didn't get yourself locked into the Hap no trade clause, I would have traded Hap and put Bellinger in left. But
Hmm.
the the contract situation with the Cubs to me has been one where I'm just like I'm just like so baffled sometimes at the way that all of it worked out.
It's just the fact that they have so many like outfielders in the farm system and they
Yeah.
sign outfielders.
Yeah, right.
It's the
I
most
know.
confusing thing I've ever seen. Every time I see one of your videos, oh, new trade, I'm thinking like, who'd we get? And then I
Yeah,
see
right.
outfielder, and I'm like, what are we
Yeah,
doing?
right. We get, we sold Bellinger. We didn't give anybody back for him.
Yeah,
I mean, really, like the Yankees threw somebody in just because they had to, right?
they had
Like,
to. Yeah,
yeah,
washing
like
machine or
that's
yeah.
yeah, right. Like, right, a washing machine. That's what I said. I don't know, man. Like, I've been around the organization for so long,
Hmm.
and I want it to be like a play-by-play guy, and all that, and then eventually I do my own thing. And it's like there were years where I would just sit behind the scenes and be like, what the hell's going on? Now I just say it on my channel, like, hey, I don't get this. Or if somebody's doing something great, I love that, man. I love being like, hey, this was like with PCA. I'm like, this guy can
Unbelievable.
play, man. Like, and getting ripped every day in the comment section. And I'm like, I'm telling you, man, the guy can play. And then when he starts playing, it's like, hey, I told you, Um, so that's the fun part about having your own space. But I'm just like like you're saying, like the contract situation, having like 8 outfielders in 3 spots.
Makes no sense.
Having Ian Happ signed for that money, like I get he's a good player, but he's not. Ian Happ's not a superstar. He's a good player, but he's not the kind of guy that you give a no trade clause. And then the worst one's Dansby Swanson, just because you're paying him to be like your best player, and he's just not. Like he's like your 7th or 8th hitter, and nobody's paying attention to you if you're batting 220,
No.
and you're not hitting a ton of home runs. Like you can't go in the clubhouse and jump in people's, behinds if you're not the best player. And he's not the best player. If he is the best player, if he gets close to being the best player, this team will be so much better.
Hmm. But he wasn't the best player on those Braves teams.
I know. That's why they
So
didn't sign him, though. Because the Braves aren't stupid. Like,
I
if they
know. So
thought that losing him was going to make a difference, they would have signed him.
I know.
They
So they
tried to sign Freddie.
they did.
Freddie's the one that screwed that up, his
Mhm.
agent. You know, it's they didn't care about signing Swanson. And then the Cubs did, and it was like I remember being on Twitter at the time, and and David Kaplan, I love Cap. He's like getting on me because I'm like, hey, I'm not signing him or Correa or any of these guys for these contracts. Oh, but the Cubs need to do this. So, well, now you're stuck. You got a shortstop that's the eighth batter on your team, and you're paying him 177 million, and he's the one of the worst hitters on your team, and you got to put him in there every day. And you could go put someone in the minor leagues in there for less than $1 million and go sign someone like Tucker
Mhm.
and actually have a superstar. But that's not the option that we have. We're the
They didn't
dummies
do
that took this
they
contract.
didn't do their homework. You
Well,
know.
so he was available. Like, oh, well,
Oh, we'll get him.
we
He
want to
sounds
win the
good.
offseason, but you can't win the offseason. That guy's got to go in and perform.
It's the
And I
same.
hope that he goes in and absolutely kills it this year. And I'm talking to you next year and going, hey, man, like, we needed that. Because if he performs up to his contract, we're going to have a pretty good team.
Does he need to bat 300, or does he just need to make key plays in key times? Because
If he batted 300, I'd be fine with that. I mean, I still think that matters, but I
I
mean,
think the
he's just got to
leader that
drive in runs. Like, he's just an easy out. Like, he
yeah,
comes up,
100%.
he's got warning track power. Like, you never were when you see him in the lineup, you're not going, he I hate to say this, but I know a lot of you guys watching are going to agree with me. It just reminds me of Jason Hayward. Like, when you're
It
paying
is.
this guy and he comes up, and then you're getting the ground ball to second.
It
Oh,
is.
maybe
You're
it's a
right.
little pop up to second. Oh, well, it could be a strikeout or a weak fly ball out to right. Like, but it was a combo of one of those four, right? Um,
Well, you're right.
Swanson to
That's what the
me is
stats
that
say.
guy right now.
That's what the
So
stats say. Like you're right.
yeah. So
You
I
know what
mean
I
that's
mean?
it.
But
Now apparently he was hurt, so who knows? Maybe he bounces back. I don't know. But
everybody's hurt.
Bobby Dernier told me one time, he's like, man, you're never healthy.
Never.
When you play 162 games, you're hurt from the minute you start. So
Yeah, these guys are in their late 20s, early 30s.
right.
Like they're not
You're paid
20 or
177 million. I mean, like at least be like the second batter, like be a good second batter. Like you just walk and get on base, right?
is
Where
it
it's like, well, you know what? I'm not the guy driving in runs, but I'm always on base. He didn't do any of that. Like, and then watching him like frustrated, like he's slamming his bat and he's like down in the dugout, like head down and all that. Like, no, man, you're past that now. Like, it's your responsibility to be the guy.
100%?
Be the guy. Like, don't
Just
don't
be
give
it.
me the head down. Like, don't when you get a good hit and you win, and then you're talking on the post game show, don't give me the hey, you know what? I'm glad this happened. Like, act like you've been there before. And so I really feel like he's the most integral part of this entire Cubs team.
It makes sense to me. Yeah, you got to be the leader. It's
Yeah.
more than just playing the sport of baseball. It's the full package. But it's hard to be a leader when you bat 200 and had a terrible May, June, and July.
Yeah, right, right. And then at the end of the year, when everybody's got their minor leaguers up and you're playing like the worst stretch of teams, you're sitting around like talking about like, well, we're 83 and 79. It's like, who cares that you're 83 and
It's
79?
such a
Like, you
joke.
didn't make the playoffs. Like,
It's
you're over 500, but it just means you're getting less balls in the lottery. You
I'll
guys
tell you.
haven't been in it since July.
Well, I'll tell you something right now. It's like the Cubs treat themselves like a small market team,
Yeah.
like with their standards, expectations, and the whole nine yards. And
Hmm.
it drives me up a wall. And I don't. Sometimes I drink the Kool-Aid. I'm like, yeah, the Cubs, Chicago. It's not that big of a city. It's like the third biggest city in the country.
Yeah,
And
right.
this Chicago Cubs were the biggest brand, the third biggest brand probably.
I'm going to take up for Tom again, and I feel like if I'm Tom,
Yeah.
I've invested in Jed, and I'm not 100% sure about Jed. If I'm Tom, he hasn't won anything, and I'm not letting him get me into a bunch of long-term deals outside of Dansby, because if I go out and sign another GM at the end of the season when we have another failure, I got to have flexibility on the roster, you know. So I know a lot of people want to say he's cheap. I think it's good business. I'm pulling for Jed. I really do think he's a good dude. I do want him to succeed, but the window's very it's like this for him, and he'll never be a GM again. He'll be known as the Robin of Batman for the rest of his career unless he has a good season.
Absolutely. All right, Mick, thanks you so much for joining. This has just been utterly awesome. Love your channel, Cubs Baseball channel, everyone. But yeah, thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, man. Look, come to the Cubs baseball channel and always look. I love beers and I love Ivy. So, I've got Ivy on my studio
Yeah.
outside. So, but two favorites of mine. But thanks for having me and go Cubs.
Right on. Go Cubs. Thanks all. All right, thanks for checking out today's video. We got a lot more content coming, especially around college football and the college football playoff, and then we'll pivot definitely into more Chicago Cubs baseball. I want to shout out Mick again, Cubs baseball channel. Really appreciate that. It was awesome. A State of the Union Chicago Cubs, talking about everything from the decision to leave Chris Bryant and the boys all the way to now, what we should do in free agency, and how we move forward in 2025. Let us know your thoughts, comment, subscribe. Appreciate the support. We'll keep it going. Go Cubs.